Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And I want to follow up because I was going to ask this as well, because people forget, they see the moment that it happens, then they forget what happens afterwards to the family and the children. And for your daughter and cousin and everyone else who experienced it, how are they feeling now?
They're still in fear. She calls me, today she called me 12 times just to make sure I was okay, make sure I was safe. Mm-hmm. It's just, she just fear everything now. She's seen them down the street from her school, and we had to go pick her up because she's full panic.
Yeah. And can you talk a little bit about even the chilling effect that this has had, not just maybe on you and your family, but neighbors or people that find out about what happened? Have you heard from neighbors and others who are also in fear now because of what happened?
Yeah, a lot of my neighbors don't go anywhere now. It's like we're in jail in our own homes, too fearful to leave, to go to the store, just fear.
Right. And can I talk about, let me ask both Mr. Schwank and Bunil, sensitive locations. I'm curious, how did ICE handle sensitive locations prior to what we are seeing now in your experience? Let me clarify, sensitive locations of schools and churches and even the courthouse and where people may be. I'm curious how that has changed.
Thank you, Senator. So the answer to that question is that before the current administration, there were strict rules about any attempt to make an arrest at those locations. And those rules basically boiled down to don't do it.
Why?
Don't enter those locations because of their sensitive nature, because an ICE officer entering into a church, a school, a courthouse has the effect of convincing people not to go to those places, to avoid them. And when people avoid going to church, school, or court, they step away from the rights and the roles they have in our civic society. It pushes them away from it and it gives them less power to protect themselves.
And wouldn't you agree somebody's home is also considered a sensitive location? That's why it requires Fourth Amendment, really constitutional protections it has, and it requires a Fourth Amendment judicial warrant to enter. Wouldn't you agree, because of what we're hearing right now, the impact it is having to families because they don't even feel safe in their homes?
Yes, Senator. In fact, I think that's why it's not included in those original memos.
Yeah.
It's obvious to anyone who looks at the U.S. Constitution that the home is a sacred place. It is a place where everyone should feel safe when they close their door.
And for those that may not be steeped in legal analysis, this isn't criminal. This is civil immigration. This is civil, correct?
Yes, Senator.
And can you talk? Yeah,
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about that, please, and why, when we're talking about civil immigration enforcement, it does not require the level of force, and it mandates against the level of force we are seeing right now under our Constitution?
Yeah. I actually don't think it makes a difference in terms of the Fourth Amendment, whether it's civil or criminal. You need a judicial warrant. So that's one point. I think there is some confusion, certainly in the public discourse, about what ICE is doing when they're out making these arrests. They are not enforcing criminal law. They're not going after somebody who's a suspected murderer or rapist who's out on the lam, and they're not arresting them so they can be prosecuted and put into jail. They are going out to detain and remove that person out of the country. They're from Mexico. They'll go back to Mexico and they'll be set free.
Not to be detained indefinitely.
Just as, long enough to be removed, basically. Sometimes that is a long period of time. There are lots of people who are subject to orders of removal, like Mr. Gibson, who are not a public safety risk, who are not a flight risk, and therefore are not detained. They're released into the community with conditions. And, in his case, he was adhering to those conditions for 17 years. These are not, in his instance, these are not the worst of the worst. These are not dangerous people. But they have civil rights, they have constitutional rights just like everybody else. And, you know, one of the things that gets lost here kind of dovetails with the lack of training. All of these agents and the lawyers take an oath to defend and protect the Constitution. It'd be nice if they were trained on what the Constitution is. The Homeland Security Act says as part of its mission, the department is supposed to protect civil liberties, protect privacy. A secure homeland is a homeland in which you have those rights secured. You have the freedoms and securities that the country promises. And so we're losing sight of the mission when we don't pay attention to the Constitution, we don't pay attention to the oath, and we ridicule the, quote, deep state for trying to follow that oath.
And with the chairman's indulgence, I have one final question, because Mr. Schwank, you talked about how the training, they've eliminated some training and then shortened some of the training around use of force, 16-hour firearms training around constitutional law that you talked about was so important, and the rights of protesters. It's been diminished about, 10 minutes. Let me ask you this. Who are they hiring, though? Are they police officers that already have this training so they don't have to worry about it? Or who's being hired? Is it individuals that don't have any law enforcement background or constitutional background? I'm curious what we're seeing here in this surge.
Thank you, Senator. So I want to start to answer that question by saying I was genuinely surprised by two things about the cadets I saw at the academy. One was that I routinely met cadets who genuinely wanted to learn and understand what they were supposed to do, that they wanted to do their jobs correctly. I have no doubt that if given the opportunity, they would do that. But they are cadets who come from a variety of backgrounds. I've had cadets who were 18 years old. I had a cadet who we celebrated her 19th birthday in one of our classes. We have cadets who don't have college degrees. We have cadets for whom English is not their primary language. I was genuinely surprised by the sheer number of cadets we had that were first or second generation immigrants. And these are all people who I think want to do well, but they don't have the background, and we're not giving them the training to do this job correctly. We're not giving them the training to know when they're being asked to do something that's not supposed to do, something illegal or wrong.
Thank you. Thank you, all three of you, for being here.